I never felt the need to shout to be heard. I didn't drive a customized truck to get attention, and I didn't care for the flash of a designer watch. My hands were my resume, thick, calloused, and capable. I valued legacy over trends. When I met Victoria, I thought I'd finally found someone who understood that a life built by hand lasts longer than one built on hype. We met at a small bistro in Franklin, Tennessee. She was striking, razor-sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of cold flint, and hair that never seemed to have a strand out of place. She looked like she was carved out of marble, perfect, expensive, and a little bit cold. She was a top-tier corporate litigator in Nashville, the kind of woman who wore $2,000 silk suits like armor. I was a master carpenter, restoring the historic estates she liked to show off to her friends. She told me she loved my authenticity. She called me her anchor in a world of sharks and empty promises. I gave her my best. I renovated her home with the kind of detail you can't buy. I kept the fire going on winter nights, and I stood by her through every grueling trial. But as she climbed the partner track, her armor started to become her skin. The real rift wasn't about money or work, it was about the future. I grew up in a big family where the dinner table was the heart of the home. I wanted kids, sons to teach the trade to, daughters to protect. Victoria always danced around the subject until one night at a high-end gallery opening. Her colleagues were talking about lifestyle optimization and freedom. One of her friends, a woman who looked as brittle as glass, asked when Victoria was going to settle down and start a family. Victoria didn't even hesitate. She took a slow sip of her martini, her eyes sweeping over me with a mixture of boredom and condescension. "Children?" she laughed, a sound like ice cubes hitting a floor. "Jack lives in a fantasy world of picket fences and Sunday morning cartoons. He doesn't realize that some of us have empires to build. I'm not sacrificing my career to be a suburban incubator for a man who still thinks it's 1955. The circle of lawyers smirked. I looked at her, waiting for the "just kidding" or the softening of her gaze. It never came. To her, my desire for a family wasn't a shared dream. It was a primitive limitation. I wasn't her partner. I was a hobby she had outgrown. I didn't argue. I didn't defend my values. I simply set my glass down on a marble pedestal, turned, and walked out into the cool Tennessee night. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a long, emotional text explaining my feelings. I just stopped. I moved my tools out while she was in court the next day. I deleted her number. I chose my dignity over her vision of a power life. The messages started that evening. First, they were annoyed. "Where are you? We have dinner reservations." Then they turned sharp. "Don't be dramatic, Jack. It was a joke." By the end of the week, the voicemails were frantic. She showed up at my workshop on the outskirts of town, her luxury SUV looking wildly out of place in the gravel. She stood there in her designer heels, looking desperate and tired, watching me work on a mahogany cradle for a client. I didn't stop my saw. I didn't even look up. 6 months later, I saw her in a park in Belmead. I was sitting on a bench, a coffee in one hand and a blueprint in the other. I looked different, peaceful, grounded, successful in a way that had nothing to do with a corporate title. She was walking her pedigree dog, looking thinner, her face tight with the stress of the empire she was building alone. She stopped. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "you look happy." I didn't stand up. I didn't offer her a seat. I just gave her a polite, distant nod. "I am, Victoria. I hope you found that empire you were looking for." I went back to my blueprints, and I didn't need to look up to know she was still standing there, realizing the cost of her coldness. She had treated a man of substance like a temporary accessory, and she finally understood that once a man like that walks away in silence, he never, ever looks back.